what have we got ahead of us? We have got a fireside chat, which I'm delighted to host, and I'd like to invite on stage Tommy from Volition, Barton to return to the stage, Burley to come and join us again, and I look forward to taking us through why no code is the game changer. Tommy. So guys, maybe just a high-level question to kick off with, if it's okay. What would you say the hottest digital or IT trends are on the market that you've observed very recently?
Well, you've already heard a lot about different digital trends, everything from the metaverse and robotics and AI. I'm going to choose something maybe a little bit more grounded in sort of the nearer term. That's as a result of the changes we're seeing to work, really inspired out of necessity by the pandemic and people having to move online. I've seen some data, I think it was from McKinsey, that indicated that the move to offering new digital products and services has been accelerated more than 7 years, beyond where it would have been because of the pandemic. So I think the thrust by companies, many who are not traditional software companies, but really looking to move to new digital products and services is a trend that we're seeing right now, and I think will continue to last well after people have returned to offices and are still offering in-person services.
Thank you, Burley. Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say what we're observing, currently as a firm is really what I would categorize as hyper-optimization. So I think, within that, probably there's two tracks. One is workflow automation, which, obviously Creatio plays a big part of, which is, how much of the processes, how much of the clicks can we reduce, but also how much of the human friction can we reduce in terms of different departments interacting with each other and just completing tasks in a timely, accurate, but also in a very predictable manner. I'd say from a data perspective, we've probably seen a long time where there's a lot of siloed software solutions by different departments. And with different software solutions, there's different data silos today. And a lot of work being done on how do you pull the silos of data into one big pool or something where you can manage to really get ahead of any conflicts, friction, or even opportunities you may have, and go the hyper-optimization route.
Interesting. So combination process automation and really what software can achieve as a result. Interesting. Okay, totally. Thank you. And Barton?
I take it from a different angle. I think the hottest trend is understanding the Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Z, and even those that follow. They really do think differently. They have different expectations. They live in a different environment. The metaverse is a norm to them. The desire to be free and choose and do what they want to do, et cetera, it's just a part of who they are. So we have the hottest trends are on their side. It's the metaverse, it's the whole world of digitization. But on the other side, us as the manufacturers or service providers or product providers, we have to think about how do we capture the insight of our customers? How do we use AI and ML? How do we use some of our knowledge of customer behavior to better understand and predict where they're headed? I'm of the belief, that figure I gave this morning of, and you could agree it might be slightly exaggerated, but it's not far from the truth that half of the companies in this S&P 500 may not be here in 10 years. That's because the customer will drive them out. It's not, the customers chose Netflix. The customers dropped, blockbusters. And so our need to really understand what is important to them is critical, and it's well defined.
And technology can allow for that choice by customers. And I think there's a common theme through the answers here of technology can allow. This paradigm shift, the transformation, no code, right? Is it going to be the equivalent? I'm thinking like over the last probably 15 years of the new cloud, right? The cloud has allowed a lot of transformation to happen. Is no code going to be the new cloud? Is it going to be completely able to change the way businesses use technology?
Yeah, I'll take a first answer. I do believe that. I mean, when you look at the cloud, it started with, abstracting away the infrastructure, delivering infrastructure as a service. Then you saw platform as a service become the next sort of value prop. And that simplified a lot of things, but it's, you didn't have to host your database, you didn't have to host your middle tier, but you still had to write code and you still had to have a developer in-house. And so I think in some ways this is the next layer above PaaS, right, that really now democratizes the first time to a whole new audience. And so I think it's a natural evolution of the cloud in that regard, and it's much broader than people think. I think people have thought about no code a little bit too narrowly. If you think about it in terms of the cloud and how pervasive PaaS has become, that gives you sort of a different way to think about the impact that no code will have.
Thank you, Barton.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and I think, when it comes to especially B2B software, there's probably, two choices in bookends of the spectrum, which is one, you custom build from scratch, and second, you take something out of the box. And in an ideal world, either whatever's out of the box fits 100% of your needs, or the custom build is economical and it's not a multi, tens of millions of dollars type of project. And really, if we look at, hey, what's an ideal world, it's somewhere in the middle, right? Where you don't have to incur the cost of a custom build, and yet you can have out-of-the-box capabilities, but also the opportunity to go from 80% of your needs to meeting 100% of your needs. And I think the no-code industry, as a result, whether it be marketing, supply chain, compliance, we're seeing a lot of platforms in a similar manner in different departments within enterprise and markets come up, and we feel like that's going to just continue proliferating itself.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are much smarter than I am when it comes to this, but I would say yes, but maybe again a slightly different bent. It's a bell-shaped curve. There are those out front that are going to say this is the only way to move forward. I got to have it. And there's those that are laggards that are just going to say, well, I don't need it, but we're doing just fine. And all of the rest of us are in the middle. And the question is, how quickly do you want to move? And again, I think part of that will depend on the culture of your organization. I think it'll depend upon the risk that your organization is willing to take. And I think, what we really should be talking about, and maybe you are thinking, going to ask a question around this, but what is it that we can do, you can do, to your executive teams or to the CIO or CTO or whatever it may be, or yourself if you are that person, to move you in the direction of no code, given how significant role it will play in business and the way we use technology and create technology.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Barton. So, there's a view of how impactful no-code can be. What risks can you foresee, maybe for the no-code market? Maybe, Barton, do you want to carry on?
Yeah, I mean, I might be a little repetitive, but it's about education and training. Those of us that have been around for a long time know that technology takes time, technological enhancement takes time to take hold, and that we all think it's going to happen a lot quicker than it does, and it doesn't. But in order to drive that adoption, I think this concept of education and training is critical, and it has to be at the highest of levels. I'd rather see it, quite frankly, on the golf course between two CEOs saying, yeah, we got to do this no-code thing, and the other guy or gal says, what the hell are you talking about? And by the time they finish the golf round, they go back to their board meeting and they say, we got to do no code. And somebody says, what's that, boss? And he says, don't know, but you better figure it out. I'd rather get to that stage where we have this education and training. I think that you will find resistance from the old guard. I know many CIOs, CTOs that still are not always jumping to make change. And you're going to have to figure out how to bring them along. And I think the right way to do that is through use cases and showing them how quickly things can be done. You just need an hour in the lab next door, and it's pretty convincing what's going on here. I think adoption will happen over time in different rates, but our job, if you will, or your job, is to educate and train those that will make the decision to move it forward more quickly.
Thank you. Tommy?
Yeah, I agree, and I was struggling for the right term, but I think education is definitely the key word here, and I think there will be, and I'm approaching it more from a higher level market perspective. If I was a pre-existing out-of-the-box software vendor, there's probably going to be a lot of noise to say messages like, hey, our time to value is faster. We can do what they do. And the reality is they can show 70, 80%, maybe slightly faster, but the problem is they get stuck at that 80% of functionality level. So as no-code as an industry continues to grow, there's probably going to be a lot of noise and marketing pushback, and penetrating through that and educating folks of why it's more beneficial to go this route and why it's more cost effective and so forth. I think it's going to be a key challenge as an industry that we need to tackle.
Very insightful. Thanks, Tommy. Burley.
It reminds me of a quote. They say when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I think one of the risks is that people won't change their practices, right? You'll see IT just try to pick up no code and implement using their existing practices or in the way that's familiar to them, and not really exploit some of the new opportunities and lean in and really enable the business to drive things as well as they can, right? And it's a little bit of promotion for why we're writing the no-code playbook, but we do think that things are different, right? And you need to adopt a different mindset and not just use the hammer because that's the tool you're familiar with.
So very much a humanistic risk, I think, is very common throughout those answers. So if there was one thing, guys, one thing that you'd recommend to an organization, right? They're thinking about investing in no code. What would be that one thing that you'd advise them?
Yeah, I mean, no pun intended, but I'd probably say think outside the box. We're probably, including myself, we take out-of-the-box software and our processes revolve around that software. So we're really conforming into how can we maximize the use of this software, not how can we maximize our own workflows outside of the software. So, if possible, and it goes back to habits, if a software could do whatever we want it to do, how would we reconfigure that to best optimize our own workflows? And I think it goes back to an education issue and just habits and breaking out of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I might complement it by, again, taking the time to educate, particularly the executives, through what I'd like to call show and tell sessions. They're pretty easy to do, and if they're done at the right place and the right time, they can be very effective. The other tool that I use a lot with executive teams is test and learn. So, give me 50 grand, give me 100 grand, give me whatever I need, but let me just do this little skunk work and show it to you. We'll test and learn. And that can really be a very effective way if you have the executive buy-in. But the bottom line is you got to put your stakes in the ground now to make this happen.
Thank you.
I think my advice would be think big, but start small. It is important to have a big vision and to have, ideas that are outside the box, but then you also have to deliver value fast. And so thinking about what's that first use case, what's that first step that you can take that unlocks value, and then keep taking lots and lots of those small steps to continuously unlock the value. I think that's proves the unique value prop of no code. Okay, so again, making an action and proving a way forward is obviously very key here. I would like to say, Tommy, Burley, thank you very much. Barton, really appreciate your insights. Thank you, guys.